Hi everyone. We'll just give it a few minutes for people to tune in. But if you're joining us, welcome to this edition of Sulfur Artist Talks. Sulfur Studios is an organization that fosters community and the cultivation of contemporary art by curating diverse exhibitions, providing affordable or sponsored artist studio space, furnishing space for special events, presenting accessible education and outreach programming, and introducing artists to the community through our on-view artist residency program and open studio events. We offer year-round art exhibitions, an artist and curator lecture series, and educational programming for art patrons of all ages. By providing art classes and workshops, community outreach, and internships, we create engaging learning opportunities for the community. We're here today for a curator's talk with Antonia B. Larkin, the curator of Revival, which is our current exhibition on view here in our front space and in our on-view pop-up gallery, as well as the main gallery. And we have a diverse range of programming that's been in conjunction with this exhibition as well. I'm going to introduce Antonia, the curator of Revival. She is an artist and curator living and working in Savannah who makes work that examines intimacy, healing, and representation. And she holds an MFA from Cranbrook Academy of Art and a BFA from Georgia Southern University. Revival is a multi-faceted exhibition featuring 14 artists from around the country and is on display here at Sulfur through March 28th. In conjunction with the exhibition, as I said, we're also hosting site-specific installations filling multiple areas of Sulfur, featuring work by Tricia Hersey of Atlanta's Not Ministry, which is here in the windows, as well as this work by Antonia. So if you're in town, come by and definitely check everything out, or you can check it out on our website as well. So Antonia, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a wonderful exhibition. So maybe you want to start with explaining where we're sitting right now.
Yeah, so where the Revival sort of started was with my own work and my own wanting to deprogram my ways of thinking and navigating. And so I have been working in this way for a while, but this piece specifically was inspired by Breonna Taylor and by her, tragic passing. And so I created this video that we have behind us, and it is of the Atlantic Ocean. And on top of it, there's a bubble wrap filtered video of me laying sleeping. And so the reason why I wanted to film the Atlantic Ocean, so thinking about the history of Black Americans and how we got to this place where while someone is resting, they're being disrupted and murdered. And so that all our story, a big part of our story starts with the transatlantic slave trade. And many enslaved Africans believed that evil spirits can travel through water. And so as I was at the beach recording this, I just kept thinking, but those evil spirits, they built ships, they brought us over here, and put us in this a part of this system that we have a hard time navigating because it's a system built to work against us. And so yeah, that's how my work is all about, taking up space and time and making people, my audience, really sit and experience my work, and have to sit and experience it.
Yeah, I think you created this really serene space here, and I think there's a really interesting tension between that serenity and this idea of rest, which is throughout the whole exhibition, and then violence and resistance and activism. So these things are sort of working together. So I think it's really powerful that you've chosen to create a peaceful space where people can come in and contemplate that in a way that draws people in. Can you maybe talk about the bubble wrap quilt that's on the floor?
So this bed rests on a bubble wrap quilt, and this piece was inspired by these quilts. And so I use bubble wrap as a sort of, it's meant to protect you, but it's also really fragile. And just thinking about how the protection that we do have in this country is really fragile, and just like sort of a metaphor for that, and wanting to thinking about like the resourcefulness of the women of these bins, and a lot of like formally thinking about the way they used like recycled fabrics to put together quilts, and a lot of them have these sort of geometric patterning, and so that's where that came from. And then the bed, laying on top of the quilt is sort of like it elevates the bed. It's meant to like elevate the bed and like add like a level of protection.
Right. Yeah, the idea of protection is interesting. That balance too between safety and violation of what you feel is your safe space. Like as you mentioned with Breonna Taylor, her space was violated. Her place of rest was violated.
Yeah, and then like thinking like that didn't start with Breonna Taylor. I think about like how Fred Hampton died, and he was at rest as well. How like when Black people are resting or experiencing joy of any kind is often violated or tainted by the white gaze, and so that's really what this piece is about.
I think having this all laid out on the floor speaks to that as well. We can in the flowers that are strewn about. There's this sense of like needing to be careful. This is like the first time that I've been sitting on the bed, and it's a different experience entirely than just standing and contemplating it. And then it's in relationship to the front windows, so people see it from the street, and they see as well the piece from the Nat Ministry and Tricia Hersey's work. You want to speak to me to that connection?
Yeah, so actually, would it be helpful to go outside and look at the work? So Tricia Hersey in the Nat Ministry, her message is like rest as resistance, and going against like capitalism, which is steeped in white supremacy, and she has all these like really powerful quotes of really powerful messages, like our bodies are a set of liberation, rest is resistance, rest is reparations, like thinking of why do we have to fight so hard for, when I think of this work, I think of like, why do we have to fight so hard for our freedom? Because this is a system that wasn't created by us, and so our allies should really be the ones breaking the system down if they really care to be true allies.
So that's an interesting point that you made, that the right to rest is something that's often violated. The right to, like, being comfortable in the place that you're in the world, and that people take for granted or criticize even when someone attempts to just rest when it's a rightful thing to do.
Yeah.
So now that we're in this space, do you want to maybe speak to the decision that you made as a curator, like the vision for this exhibition, and why you chose the works that you did?
Yeah, so this exhibition is obviously an open call, so I had no idea what I was going to get. But when I got it, initially, like, I was thinking about what I felt when I looked at the work, not even thinking about like the descriptions of the work, how I responded to it, and then I went through the descriptions and then tried to like start narrowing things down, and I really think we got a really strong collection of work. Yeah, so the different ways that people chose to sort of express radical care, self-time collectively, that was fascinating. Particularly, what piece I think in this exhibition is like truly the hidden gem is this Gerald Mobley piece, and thinking of like the the objects that his grandmother the objects that his grandmother, interacted with every day, holding her spirit. It was just so powerful. But yeah, it's such a simple piece. And when you're looking in the space, it's sort of a point of it gives the eye a break, but also when you read his description of the work, it is really touching and a really beautiful. There's just a really beautiful meaning behind it.
Yeah, there's sort of a reverence to them and a meditation to the act of balancing these objects in a deliberate way. And then in relationship to other objects that are in the show or represented in this work.
Yeah. So another piece in this work, in this show that I wanted to talk about is everybody, the crowd comes home, and it looks as though people are walking to the sun, and the world is expanding and changing. But the way that it's done, this layering, is beautiful. And so as you look at it, you see something new every time, which I find really powerful.
Yeah, it's definitely, that resonates with me as well. Each time I come in here, there are different little details just because of the nature of encaustic.
Yeah.
And that process, too, is a very thoughtful one of what's coming on each subsequent layer. And then you pick out these little things that are actually surprisingly representational. And then this other piece, this screen wall.
Yeah.
You can pick out the cars and
it's so looking at Christine's work is peaceful, and initially when I saw the work, that's what I felt. I was I didn't know, on the computer it's sort of hard to see exactly what's going on without reading about it, but I just felt so at peace looking at this work, and seeing it in person, it just changed it even more, seeing the different layers of it.
yeah, I think that's something that's true of a lot of work in this exhibition. You might, just from seeing it online is one thing, but even with the video work, physically experiencing it is different.
It is.
It's surprising. So I'm glad that we were able to have this longer piece by Paramount.
Yeah, and so one thing I really enjoy about this is the meditative quality that this piece has, and it also has that it connects really well to Maria Durango's piece, which is with the other videos. But yeah, I could stare at this forever. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the durational element of it is interesting. So this exhibition has a lot of revisit value. So even if you've been in here once, maybe come back and check that again, because you might see something different in the films and in Christine's pieces. But this kite sort of floats across the screen and disappears at moments. So you might come in here at a particular moment and just see a blue screen and not even realize that content is there.
Yeah, there's even a moment just happened where a bird flew down, in which that's something with my as artist Antonia, the durational work really, it's about the time and space and taking that up, and so I really love a good long video.
So we're about to enter our video.
That was really powerful about the video work in this room is that all the artists are Latinx women. and all the videos have a sense of like community, family, place, like where you go to really rest, to revive yourself. So there's it's a lot of like this video, and also Jezebel's work, this showing of the kitchen. I really enjoy, because it makes me, although I'm not from this heritage, it makes me think of my own family.
Yeah, it's so I was saying, like, the physical experience of being here and seeing these videos is different from seeing them online, because they're creating like a sense of these physical places.
Yeah, the way that these videos are put together, it is really like a continuum. It creates a story within like all these artist works.
Right. And they reference, some of them are referential to film itself, like the piece where there's the projector running and it's centered like this, or even the moments when it goes dark in here, and then you're very aware of where you're sitting and how that, becomes a reflection of rest. But it ties back to your piece as well, because it's like this physical space for rest.
Yeah, so thinking of like when I was first thinking of revival, I thinking of like myself and how to like sort of deprogram myself, and thinking of the way to do that is to like connect with like your family, your community, but also like your ancestry, and thinking of like traditions, like going back to like traditions, and a lot of like being in the kitchen brings up that like so much.
Yeah, and it has to do to that aspect of self-care. It's
And,
like the most basic act of feeding yourself.
Nourishing your body.
Yeah, and the relationships to people, as you were saying, is an element of care, which also connects to pieces like daughter, the larger piece that's out there.
Yeah, I really, what's beautiful about this show being an open call is that I didn't have myself to like constrict which ways like people's work went to like a place of like radical care. And so I really do enjoy the daughter, and like thinking of like mother-daughter relationships, and the Jerome Mobley thinking of like his relationship with his grandmother, Riley Clive's piece, and thinking of like the LGBTQ plus community, and the elders of that community.
Yeah, I think that you found a great balance as a curator between like being surprised and affected by all these different responses, but then finding a way, like finding the connections between them and weaving them together in a way that does justice to each different way of thinking about radical care.
Yeah, thank you. The daughter piece, like specifically, I would have, as a daughter, which is funny, I would have never thought of that like line of thinking about like that relationship. So I would like in my work thinking of revival, I think of like ancestry and like rest, and as you know, an African American woman, thinking of like trying to connect to traditional African religions and beliefs, and connecting to like orishas and that sort of thing. So just like a mother-daughter relationship seems, while often complicated, seems like a really like basic, but also, you know, an important relationship.
Right. Yeah, there's this sense of continuity and connectedness, and that can be very grounding and like something you can return to for comfort and for, you know, a sense of identity. So yeah, here's this moment with the projector. I think it's so interesting in this space.
I like the conversation that's happening because, like pointing out who's who in the video. Sort of like speaks to like connecting and remembering your ancestors.
I think you mentioned deprogramming and reprogramming. I think there's an element of that too, just with experiencing the video work as, again, like a durational thing to reprogram, you know, how we exist.
Yeah, it's 25 minutes, right, altogether, and sitting through all of it, like, in this setting, we're like sitting through it and we're talking through it, but like when I first sat through it and watched the videos by myself, I had a really emotional reaction to it. I actually cried at some points. There's something really beautiful that happens when you put these works together. It's like you see that, just seeing like the connections, and that everyone is sort of like, all the artists in this exhibition are sort of at this place where they're wanting to reconnect, and in the process of that, and how heavy that can be. Really beautiful. And specifically, I really cried during Jessica's piece. There's a point where she speaks about, gosh, I wish I knew it verbatim. I wish it would like come up. About the promising not to call herself an American.
Right. Good timing.
Promising not to, but like being called an American anyway, like people doing it for her, if she's Puerto Rican, and thinking, like I in the past I found myself like talking about Puerto Rico and then saying, yeah, it's a part of America, but it isn't really, right? Mm-hmm. Like her work really gives a sense of like what colonization has done to that island.
Yeah, and I think the text-to-speech element that she uses for the narration speaks to that as well. Yeah. Because it's not even her voice saying it in the voiceover. It's this computer-generated voice that's saying it for her.
Diana Karamat asked if you wanted to make any sort of mention to the rest as a portal sign, and like I think the meaning to that and where that came from.
Yeah, so Rest is a Portal is actually built from the Net Ministries, and it worked perfectly above Diana's work because, like, formally because of color, but also how meditative that piece is. Like, I can easily see that piece, like, playing as someone's falling asleep. That piece is sort of a portal in and of itself.
And Nikisha Jones asks, will you continue this theme in your next show?
So I'm all of, like, I do have a show brewing in my mind about sacred spaces within the Black American community, and that's something that I plan to, not specifically like doing what the revival is doing, but I'm really interested in, like, intimate and sacred places with the Black and Indigenous community.
Yeah, I'm glad that question was asked, because that's something I wanted to ask you as well. Like, looking back as this exhibition is wrapping up, what do you hope sort of the legacy of it will be, or what people take away?
Yeah. So people take away the point of this exhibition is just to get people thinking. Well, no, people are already thinking this, but just, like, I guess validating that, like, with, like, everything that's going on with the protests, with COVID, and, like, navigating, like, isolation, and also like, caring for yourself, but also wanting to care for your community. And I think that's at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. And just, like, I just wanted to, this exhibition, to show that this isn't, can't find my words. This is just something that's on everybody's mind, just to affirm that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's timely. I mean, it's not necessarily just about, it's not limited to what's going on with the pandemic, but I think that our definition of rest and our need for rest has changed and become something else, because even though, we're spending a lot of time at home, it's not necessarily restful mental time. There's a lot of anxiety at the moment.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of, like, picking up of hobbies, and, like, trying to figure out exactly how to stay sane, and how to take care.
Christina Sajecki says that she's been in a lot of shows and finds this one singularly well curated and an honor to be a part of. And she gives a little thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for submitting.
And it's great too that you set up such great programming alongside this exhibition. So there's the Youth Art Project, that I think is closing today. Have you had a chance to see any of those responses?
I have seen a few of the youth works, and they're really fun, and it's really nice to see what young folks have to say. I did want to speak about this work. This is Stephanie Concepcion, and she wrote a lot about, like, place, and this work really, like the other work, it talks about us as a place and family as a way to, like, restore yourself. But in the beginning, there's a speech that is from right before the Salvadorian Civil War, and this piece is called Prelude. So this is all, like, the beginnings of something, this piece was like something that's about to happen. And so, like, a sense of, gosh, I said it earlier, I can't think exactly the way I did, but, like, she is a Salvadorian American artist, and thinking about like the home and place, like that's her family in the States, but also about like the displacement.
Yeah, I think each of those shots is so, like, the timing, the pacing of it, I think, is also very successful.
Yeah,
because they're just these little glimpses, and just as you start to become intrigued by these little details that you're finding, it changes to something else. So there's that sense of progression towards something.
Gerald Mobley says, I'm so floored by the sheer vulnerability in your work, Antonia. Has the pandemic forced you to hold back things you may have otherwise used in your work?
Gosh, due to the pandemic, I had such a hard time working. So I guess the thing that held me back was just feeling like I think the work would have been, I don't want to say it, in ways like the work would have been more without the pandemic. I would have had, there's just like, throughout all the changes, there's like a restlessness that, that affected my work, but also in like some ways benefited it. So, yeah, I can't like specifically, like I can't like pinpoint specifically something that I would have used if there wasn't a pandemic, but I will say like the restlessness that it caused me did cause me to like hold back a little.
I think a lot of the work that's coming out of this time is going to be like an interesting archive of that, how it's affected people mentally and emotionally. And, you know, it might take some time to even just unpack that, like looking back on it years later.
Yeah. There's an audio part of my piece that that I haven't shared because I just not in a place where I'm thinking clearly enough to like speak to like that like it makes me even more like the piece is already vulnerable, and that added like sound piece makes me even more vulnerable, and I'm just not in the space to like sort of navigate that because of all the like all the like restlessness that I feel.
Right. Yeah, it's like a balance between like desiring, like forging connections with people through your work, and also, yeah, holding back certain things that come out in different ways.
And this is actually the piece where Jessica speaks about being called an American.
That line through the part about being an American. If you have a chance to stop by and experience the piece in person, to pick up on that and spend the full 25 minutes in here and time in the gallery.
Let me ask one last question before we go. But Stephanie asks, whose video we were just watching, says, are there new things that you've come to learn from curating the show that you feel like aren't necessarily reflected in art spaces right now or before?
That's a really good question. I'm sorry, I'm thinking. There are certainly, like, I've learned a lot during this exhibition. And I guess the biggest thing so normally when I curate a show, I've never, this is my first time doing an open call. So this has expanded the way that I would like normally think of putting a show together. Like there's work in the show that I probably would never have considered. But I also think this is the most successful exhibition that I've done. I'm really happy with it. So what I learned is how to look at things with more of an open mind. Because a lot of the work I probably wouldn't have thought about if it wasn't sitting in it.
Yeah, I think the call you put out is a really powerful and an opportunity for people to share these different ways of thinking. And like I said, you brought them together in such an amazing way to where they're all speaking to each other individually. So thank you for putting this together. And I really appreciate being able to shop with you today.
Yeah, this is great. I really have enjoyed putting this show together. I think it's really timely, and I hope that people gain something from it.
Yeah, thank you. If you tuned in to our conversation today, thanks for joining us. Revival will be on view in our gallery from through March 28th. So stop by and check it out. If you have the time, you can also check it out on our website, which is sulfurstudios.org. I wish you all a good day and hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Sulfur Artist Talks. Sulfur Studios is a project of Arts Southeast, a nonprofit whose mission is to make Savannah a destination for art and culture in the Southeast by supporting established and emerging artists, engaging a diverse community with creative programming, and developing awareness and appreciation of the arts. This content is made possible by viewers like you. If you'd like to support our mission, please visit us at www.sulfurstudios.org to learn more. You can also reach out to us via email at info@sulfurstudios.org. On behalf of Sulfur Studios, I wish you well and hope to see you next time. Thank you.